Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the WMB Vision Series podcast. We're swapped today.
Yeah, this is like an Uno reverse card.
Right? This guy's usually hosting, but I get to host today, and I get to interview Derek because we want to hear from you, too. We've got a lot of good stuff that we want to talk about today. So, yeah, welcome, man.
Yeah, thank
do you want to start off just by introducing yourself and who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. So everyone here would have already been introduced to me in some form, even if you've only listened to the podcast and never walked in our doors, although I don't know why you would listen to this podcast then. But my name's Derek, and I'm pastor of families here at WMB. I'm married to Abigail as of May, so we're on 3 months into marriage. Yeah, and it's going really well. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. I've been here at WMB for 2.5 years. Jeff McLeod's our lead pastor. Jeff and I started about a week apart.
Yeah, that's right.
So we kind of jumped into this thing together, which was kind of fun. And I've been loving it here. Yeah, I love working with families, working with kids. Done a bit of everything, I guess, so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We've shared the back two offices in the hallway just up at the top of the youth room stairs for a little while, and it's pretty hilarious working side by side,
Absolutely.
which has been a ton of fun.
Absolutely.
So Derek, one of the questions that you've been asking everyone, which I think is just a brilliant question, is just what makes you feel fully alive as a human and as someone here on staff at our church?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I knew this question was coming because I've been asking it every podcast. Well, let's just say when I take that swing and see my ball sail 350 yards down the fairway. No, I'm just kidding. Although that does actually give me
that would do it.
Make me feel fully alive.
That would do it.
I love just like personally, I love spending time with my wife. I love road trips. I just love being on the road, discovering new places, traveling in that way. Yeah. Honestly, I would normally rather hop in a car and go instead of an airplane even. Like I just love road trips. I love farming. I'm born and raised on a farm. I love working with animals. That's always good. I love driving in pickup trucks, although I don't own one right now, which is sad. And then even as a pastor, I just love working with people. Mm-hmm. I'd say that's, people ask me, what's your favorite job or favorite part of your job? And I always say the people. I just love working with people. I just love being able to see people discover Jesus in new and profound ways. That always fills me up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I've always been impressed by your ability to network with people and how you remember names, you remember details about their life. And I'll go and like introduce myself and I'll say like, have you met Derek? And they're like, oh yeah. And then you tell me about them. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Yeah, man, you do a really, really good job of that. Just that relational side of things. So. Yeah. Okay, cool. So another question for you. So as we've been discussing, we are in a season of visioning as a church and just asking God, what is coming for our church? What are you calling us into? So Derek, for you, what makes you really excited about this season of visioning and of dreaming?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this season. I think it's been interesting. I came to this church, like you've been here for years, right? And you've seen different seasons.
Yep.
I came to this church fresh out of COVID, really. We weren't even really out of it. My first Sunday here, there was 80 people here at Waterloo.
Wow.
And
were we still wearing masks at the time?
Absolutely,
Wow.
Yeah. So it was an interesting time to enter the church because everyone knows that a lot of things changed around here in COVID, right? And I feel like over the last few years, it's been interesting. For a while there, we had the mindset, we got to get back to where we were before COVID. Got to get back to where we were before COVID. And I think we finally have come to a point where we've come to a realization, pastor, staff, and congregation, what if God's not calling us to be what we were before COVID?
Yeah.
What if he's calling us into some new real things?
Yeah.
Some new places he wants to lead us. And I just think that really excites me. I think it's just exciting to see this new, in many ways, this new congregation, right? We have a lot of turnover, a lot of new families, a lot of new people, and just see where God's leading us, right? Yeah. And just we just need to be approaching this with humility and open arms, reading the Word, right? Yeah. That's our guide. That's the light to our path, and searching through that.
Yeah, for sure. You kind of touched on this already, but I do think it's good to ask the question of why? Why do we need to think about vision as a church? Why now? What about it is actually healthy for us? Would you want to comment on that at all?
Absolutely. I think the church has always been needing to vision,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, we have the Bible, which is an ancient Near Eastern text from over 2,000 years ago, right? And we're waded through, the church has waded through many different cultures, societies, people, eras, and there's always been different things that the church has to respond to, different cultures the church is living in. The Apostle Paul, for example, is a big word. It's called contextualization.
Yep.
The Apostle Paul contextualized, which simply means that he put the sometimes what would be hard concepts, ideas in the scriptures, the truths, profound truths in the scriptures, and explained them in ways that made sense to the people.
Yeah.
And very similar with visioning is very similar to contextualization. So much of how we need to vision and what we're revisioning towards is, okay, in our time, in this place, in this season, with our people, specific to WMB, how does this look like? How are the truths of the word? How is the ways of Jesus in our community? How is that going to be in our community, right?
Definitely.
And how is that going to be expressed in our community? So we always have to be revisioning. And honestly, 5 years from now, maybe our community looks a lot different. We're going to have to revision again. I mean, visioning is something funny because we should always be in a process of visioning. If we weren't, the church would look a lot different today, right?
Yeah, no kidding. And there's always going to be like that piece where like we are here to follow Jesus and follow in his calling of baptizing and making disciples of every nation, right? Like that is always going to be at the forefront of this. But I love just the idea of, what is God calling us into in this moment, right? Paul says, I've become all things to all people.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for us right now as a church here in KW, which is, it's pretty exciting. Okay. So another question, as we reconsider what it means to be the local church, that's some language we've been using a lot recently. Yeah. As we reconsider what it means to be the local church, what are some insights and cool things? And I specifically want to bring in Wumba Kids Camp into this conversation, because Wumba is something that you've been heading up for the past several years. It's something that's existed at our church for a little while, and it has been a local expression of what it means to be a presence here in our neighborhood. Can you comment at all on Wumba Kids Camp and how it's already been a really solid foundation, and it can probably shape what we think about when it comes to being the local church? Can you connect those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the beauty of Wumba Kids Camp, which is actually happening right now as we record this podcast.
My son is in it this week.
Exactly. The beauty of, so hopefully nothing major happens while we're recording this. The beauty of Wumba Kids Camp is it's really twofold, because you have the active opportunity to be in our community, working with kids from our community, families from our community, and share Jesus with them. And then at the same time, we are training, building up, discipling leaders. Right. So it's kind of this.
Our youth right now.
Exactly. Right.
It's
so
awesome.
it's kind of a twofold ministry. And I think it's actually a bit of a picture of what we dream of, even bigger. Right. Because we want to be able to reach our community. Right. We want to be able to connect with our community in real and profound ways and share the love of Jesus with them. Like if we truly love this community, it should break our heart that so many here have not discovered Jesus. Like that should just burn within us, right? And give us that passion. But when we connect with our community, we also want to be training up disciples of Jesus who are going to then be doing that, right? It can't just be you and I.
No.
If it's just the pastors doing this,
we're missing something.
We're going to just fall, right? Like we won't be able to do near what we are called to do. So that's really what Wumba has taught me too, is you're only as strong as your leaders. You're only as strong as the people that you've built up to lead, right? And together is better, right? And that's kind of a picture of the church. Together is better. Led by Christ. Working together.
Absolutely. I love that when I introduce myself to people in our neighborhood and I say I'm from WB Church and I'll mention Wumba, they're like, oh yeah, my kid has attended and they've loved that camp. And that just makes me soar. I think that's just so cool that Wumba is known in our local neighborhood as well as our church as just being something that is really, really good. And
it recognizes also some of the needs of our community, right? Like childcare is a big need in our community. And I think if we can partner in that, it's
Yeah.
a cool opportunity too.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. One of the things that we are visioning is what does it look like to be a church of apprentices to Jesus? I know that was a conversation you and I had earlier on in this podcast season. So for you, Derek, like what are some ways that you are already seeing this here at WMB, and what excites you about the discipleship journey in the future in this season of visioning?
Yeah, I think one of the things I just mentioned is even just a thing like Wumba, right?
Yeah.
Seeing people leading, using the gifts God's given them. And that's not restricted to Wumba. I've seen this in Alpha over the last while. I've seen this leading our kids ministry, youth ministry, right? Just people using their gifts and using their gifts to share Jesus with people in our community and even outside of our church community. I think one of the things that we really have to consider in this season too is what does it look like to have a life? Like this is a lifestyle. This isn't just a showing up to church thing, right?
It is a way.
It is a way, right? So yeah, if we have a Sunday where there's less people in the seats, maybe that tells you a bit about what's going on. But I mean, just having people in seats is really only telling you a fraction of the bigger picture, right? And what we want is for people to be living their lives in the ways of Jesus, right? And that's going to include coming to church, right? That's going to include coming and being a part of the Christian community. But just also recognizing how radical this is, right? Like I think sometimes I even get trapped in just being like, oh yeah, we got to follow in the ways of Jesus, right? But like, I don't know about you, but if I actually take a step back and be like, how radical is this?
Yeah.
And how is this actually going to change my life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, in a sense, Jesus says this is going to wreck your life,
Yes.
right?
Totally.
You got to be willing to give up your family,
everything.
give up your ways, right? Jesus is like, this is going to totally transform your life. And even if I use the example of the Sermon on the Mount, which is just a beautiful piece of scripture that I love dwelling in, Dallas Willard used to say that Jesus is the smartest person that's ever lived. And if we truly believe that Jesus is the smartest person that's ever lived, we're going to take him seriously.
Totally.
And if we're taking Jesus seriously, that's pretty radical.
Yeah.
Right? Like those are some pretty radical calls. If we are actually going to take what Jesus calls us to seriously and trust in him, that's going to really create some radical life transformation. And I think it's hard in some ways because it goes totally against the messages of our culture, right? The messages of consumerism, the messages of individualism, the messages of what is happiness. Like all these messages we're given from our culture, it really goes against that. And I think I get it. That's hard, right? It's hard when it goes just totally opposite to all the things that you're told. And as a church, I think we fall into those traps, right? And I think what would it look like for WMB? It'd be pretty radical, right? It'd be pretty radical. And, we're entering a season where, again, I've said we've been hopefully at least entering this with open hands. What are you calling us to, Jesus? And honestly, it's probably gonna be pretty uncomfortable. If it's comfortable, we're probably doing this wrong.
Probably missing something.
We're probably missing something, right?
Could I build off of something?
Absolutely.
And it's a little left field, but could you even just share like what is that transformation in discipleship looked like for you in your life personally? You can be as detailed as you want to there, but I just saw you were getting a little excited, so I was going, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it is can I give some really practical examples?
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of it is honestly recognizing what you could call the idols in your life, and the hold they have on them, and being like, okay, where could Jesus be in this? Cell phones is a perfect example. I spend way too much time on my cell phone, and just not doing healthy things, like just scrolling social media, right? Just not healthy, or being too attached to my email, right? All those different things. Maybe it's watching TV. Honestly, maybe it's even things that are like good and in some ways, like going out with friends, going out to eat, like all those different things.
And which aren't wrong in and of themselves, right? But like I like that you pointed out like the idols in your life, right?
Exactly, right? And like for some people this is sports. Right? Some people this is music. Like I hear people say all the time, and I've lived this this conundrum too, right? Oh, like I can't do this because I have my soccer game.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit in my interview as well. It's just the way we see people are so busy all the time.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, exactly. And I think busyness is one of the biggest things. So for me, one of the biggest things is, what does it mean to slow down?
Yeah.
Right. And be with Jesus, be in communion with Jesus, be in his word, be in prayer, and just walking with him. But then also like actually making changes in my life, right? Because we're all ideas people, right? It's so easy to have the idea,
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I got to follow Jesus more. Oh yeah, I got to maybe make some changes. No, like actually making legitimate changes that are like visible.
Yeah.
Right? Like John Mark Comer uses the phrase, this is ancient tradition of rules of life.
Yeah.
Right? And a rule of life is something that you are committing to doing every day, maybe weekly, depending on your rule. And it's something that said, I will do this practical thing, right? Yeah. Every day. Maybe it's something very specific, like I will commit to waking up at 6 a.m. every morning and reading my word for 30 minutes, right? Yeah. What I would really encourage people to do is to start with even just something practical like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yes, we can get into all the ideas, then we end up getting overwhelmed and just not doing it.
Yeah, totally.
And that's been something I've been really trying to do. Okay, what are some practical things that I can do? So for the last few weeks, I'll give you something practical in the last few weeks. Times when I've typically watched TV and filled my time with TV, I've been intentional about taking those hours and devoting them to reading instead.
Nice. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You reading anything good?
Am I reading anything good? I just finished a book called Where the Light Fell by Philip Yancey, which was his memoir, which was really good. I highly recommend that book. But
awesome.
So just even something practical like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really transformational.
Yeah, that's just so much. Like, you look back at your day and like, oh, I actually did something more productive. And
Exactly.
it's like it's not just that you're learning. It's like, oh yeah, I've actually spent some time thinking about something more meaningful. And not to say that watching TV is bad, but yeah, I love that. I'm with you there, man. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sweet. All right. Well, I think I've got let's do one or two more questions here for you.
Cool.
So another thing that we've been talking about as a church when it comes to vision is, what does it look like to be a church that embraces everyone who walks through our doors? And Derek, like I said before, you have a gift for this. I've seen it in you. I've seen it in the way people talk about you. You show love and hospitality very, very well. What would be some of your hopes and dreams for our church when it comes to hospitality and the way we just embrace people?
I've been thinking about this, and I actually think it really connects to what we were just talking about. In my observations, readings, just prayer, reading the scriptures, assessing our culture, and this is just my opinion, but I think there might be some truth in this, is I'm convinced part of the reason we struggle with hospitality is we're so busy.
Yeah, seriously.
Right?
Yeah.
And that we don't Sabbath well. Like our small group, we did a study from Practicing the Way, which is John Mark Comer's course on Sabbath. And very practical again, right? Practicing the Way is very practical.
Yeah, it's so good.
And yeah, I would love for everyone to do it. And even just the idea of Sabbath and how one day a week to actually rest, and not just rest like sitting on your couch and resting, right? Like resting by doing things that give you life.
Yeah.
Right? Resting by putting away the stresses and replacing them with things that fill you up. Yeah. And dwelling with God and dwelling in community as well. Yeah. And if we all were, for example, practicing Sabbath, which is a 24-hour period weekly, imagine how much more time even in that Sabbath we would have for hospitality. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like even using an ancient practice like a Sabbath meal. The practice is to start the Sabbath, they would come together, eat a meal, they would light a candle, they would share about what God is doing in their lives, right? It's very testimonial. And what if, even if we just had that practice in our lives where once a week we had a Sabbath meal, we brought another family into it, right? Or brought someone else into that. Like right there, I think that would be transformational. Yeah, like if everyone in our church did that, that'd be transformational. Because I actually don't think we're horrible at shaking hands when people walk in our door.
We're very polite. We're Canadians.
Yeah, right?
We hold the door. We are kind. Right?
Yes.
But like, how is that countercultural or even like close to what Jesus demonstrated, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I've walked inside churches, including very large churches with thousands of people there.
Yeah.
And they got great greeters. Everyone seems very friendly.
Yeah.
And it's, sure. They're all wearing like blue shirts and say, welcome here, right? Like, but in a sense, we all know that's somewhat artificial, right? Yeah. And like, not that their intentions aren't genuine. Not that their intentions aren't genuine in welcoming us, but that compared to when I'm invited over and share a meal with someone, those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Right? That compared to when I go out for coffee with someone.
Yeah, absolutely. You're hitting on something really key. And that is that just like discipleship, hospitality does not just remain on a Sunday morning.
Amen.
Discipleship does not just happen on a Sunday morning. Like
Amen.
This invades all of your life. And I still think you are gifted at this outside of Sunday mornings. Yeah. But I see that in you. And so I just love that you're already thinking about, hey guys, like what would it look like for you to show the love and character of Jesus in all the relationships of your life, whether you're going out for coffee with someone, having someone over for a meal, or if you are here on a Sunday morning, it becomes more genuine that way.
Absolutely.
So I love that, man. That's
absolutely.
Good.
Like imagine the transformation of our church.
Oh yeah. And like, and maybe our city, right? Our neighborhood beyond that, right? It's so cool.
And I hear from families all the time who've left our church, and especially the ones who've maybe come for a short time.
Right.
And almost the number one reason is they don't have an issue with our preaching often or our worship or how we do announcements. None of that stuff really. It's often, why'd you leave? Well, it's because I never connected with anyone.
Yeah. That's
in a real and profound way.
Yep.
Right? We weren't connecting with other families. We weren't connecting with other people. That's almost always the answer. Yeah. Right? And just imagine if we had a community that really, the old phrase been used many years, did life together. Yes. But like take the truth out of that, right? Yeah. What would that look like? It'd be probably pretty transformational.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, man. That's good. Anything else you want to add to that, or can I move on to the last question?
Yeah, go on to the last question.
Okay, sweet. So this is another question you have been asking everyone, and again, I think it's great to just dream. Yeah. The year 2030, where do you want to be? Where do you want our church to be? Any dreams that you would have in the next 6 years? How old are you going to be in that time frame?
2030, is that 6 years from now?
Yeah.
I'll be in my 30s. Wow.
Welcome to the club,
buddy.
Yeah,
exactly. And I'll probably have 3 kids like you do now. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I think there's some really exciting years ahead for our church. I'm actually really excited.
Yeah, me too.
And this whole revisioning to what it means to be a local church, I think that totally changed. I'm going to use another big word, ecclesiology.
Yes.
And that totally changes our ecclesiology, which means ecclesiology is basically our understanding and views of what is the church, right? Yeah. What is the meaning of the church? What is the purpose of the church? What is the operation of the church? That's our ecclesiology. And I think this whole idea of local church could really have some profound changes for us. And that could really excite me to create some pretty profound even dreams, right? Like, because if it truly is if we truly are going to be the local church, I imagine this to be a place on a Sunday where people are just drawn to, right? Where we see people walking to church. Like how impactful would that be if you saw people walking from our neighborhood to church? Yeah. Not just everyone, like I love commuters. I drive to church. I get that. But how beautiful would that be to see a bunch of people walking to church from our local community, right? And then also, I even think this could even give us kind of a new vision for possibly even new expressions through something like church planting, for example. Because if we truly believe in the local church, then maybe it makes sense for us to plant churches in communities where there's not an expression of a local church, right? Or at least some broad form of an expression like WMB, right? Yeah. That even changes sometimes that vision too, right?
That gets you excited, eh?
That gets me excited, cool. Right? Like I see so many places where even some places where our people are driving from, right? And I know people driving 45 minutes to come to WMB, right? Yeah. And how beautiful would it be for us to even say, hey, no, let's have some local churches in those communities.
Let's cut down that commute
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Cut down that commute time from 45 minutes to
Yeah.
5 minutes. That could
Yeah.
be pretty impactful,
Nice.
right?
Hey, I live nice and close. I walk to church. I love it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
so good to just be able to walk. It's just to have that connection right in your own neighborhood. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then one other final dream too. I've shared this with some people before. I really love the picture of a church family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because families look out for each other, families
Yeah.
care for one another, and that's why I love the language of church family. And what would it look like for us to be like a family of families, right? Where you view the church as a place where if you're coming to a time of need, you're gonna have a support system there.
No kidding.
People to walk alongside you. If you walk in these buildings, maybe you have little kids. Let's say you have little kids, right? Well, how beautiful would it be for you to walk in this building and a whole bunch of like adoptive grandparents
Yeah.
would come and welcome your kids.
Oh, in
and-
many ways, I already see it. It's
Exactly,
amazing.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yep, it is
and
beautiful.
just for you as a parent,
Yeah.
just like how that excites you, right? And how that makes you feel like, okay, yeah, this is the place.
Yeah.
This is the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would just love to and continue to see us pursue that.
Yeah.
Really that family feel.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good, man. Dude, awesome. Thank
Love
you.
it.
Thanks for letting me trade places with you and for
Absolutely.
being on this side of the microphone here. And just
And
for
it's
sharing your
shocking to me that we made it through this whole interview with like no fart jokes, none of
we
that
were so
stuff.
close.
I know.
Well, my friend,
Yeah.
and you are my friend, this
Yes.
has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your thoughts of what it means to be a church here and now. And I hope that was an enjoyable conversation for you. We look forward to the next episode. We'll see you around.
All right. See you, everyone.